Okay, let's get started. Welcome everyone. Welcome to this 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗧 webinar. We are going to talk about vibe coding today, a hot topic, not only for 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗧, but for the entire internet and the entire technical world, it seems. So let's get started. Thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the Q&A or the chat. I'm here to answer questions, and my colleagues are as well. It would be great if we can make it interactive. I can stop the presentation if you have any questions, of course. Let's get started. So what are we going to discuss? First, what is it exactly? A quick check. If you're an enterprise, right? How should you look at that? What does 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗧 do around this topic? Why are we different? And at the end, of course, everybody would like to see how it looks. You might have seen something online, but I can demo it to you later in this presentation. So let's get started. There is a revolution going on. And if you have been into tech for a longer period, there's a new revolution going on. And of course, you might have lived in a cave if you have missed the AI revolution in general. I think we have all made ChatGPT, Google Gemini, everything else as a standard part of our life. And some have even approached it as a friend, right? Talking to AI can be an interesting experience in good and in bad. But it has a very specific impact on application development as well. And that's what we're here for. So what is it? It is at the end a tool to convert natural language prompts into applications, and that you can do that in a matter of minutes, and we will do that today. So we're 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗧, so there's no code that you need to see if you don't want to. You don't need to sprint anything because it's faster than that. The only thing you need to do is describe what you want. That, in short, is what vibe coding is. It's also important to differentiate the different types of vibe coding, right? You can be a professional developer. That means that you use AI to generate code in a code base that already is yours to speed up your normal high coding development cycle. Really cool stuff inside 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗧. We do that as well to build 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗧. But today we are here to talk about the other part of it, where you use AI and vibe coding to build applications fast in a no-code way. Because if you look at it at this moment, most people who use the current vibe coding tools don't really care that much about the code as long as it works. And that's what we're about. It doesn't mean there's no code involved and you can't see it, right? If you are very much into code, right, we always offer access to the code, but you don't need to see it because the first goal is to solve the business problem and to create that app. So how does the dream look like? Maybe first to frame, you can already see it written down over here. It is fast, magical, and empowering. All right, I would like to use some strong words here. The dream is to turn your app into or your ID into an app into minutes. So how does that flow look like? There are AI-powered platforms like us that generate your working application from that prompt, as we mentioned. You transform the ID into a functional interface, right? A UI, almost instantly. You'll see it later on as well. You see it just being generated while you look at it. That can be magical. And an important part of it is that with this new technology and this new trend, anyone can build an application. And people who have been longer with us, we even had a banner. By 2025, it said, anyone can build an application. And thank God we had AI on time, because without AI on time, everyone would be a little bit hard. But now we can really make that statement, right? Anyone can do it. If you can type a prompt, click on a button, you can do it. Of course, right, there are always some disclaimers, but this democratization is important because in a business context, business users can now solve their own business problems, and that's really cool. You could already do that with our platform, but now it is even easier, faster, and more fun. All of you, most of you might know the other examples that are out there. Lovable gain a lot of attraction and a lot of growth as well in their own space. Analyst.tech, the analysts like John Reimer and others, 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗧𝗏, have put out a new research this week where they differentiate the different types of vibe coding, where you have vibe coding for enterprises, where we are, and vibe coding for individuals and independent professionals, and that's where Lovable and Replit are. We have named our product, our AI product, Betty Genius. At the end, it's just a part of 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗲𝗃, right? So if you want to try it while I'm talking, go to 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗃.com and sign up. So why is everybody excited? It's fast, right? It empowers the business, and you can do rapid innovation. Why is innovation important? Because we have been in a very dynamic world in the last years, and that is not going to change, right? The time between changes is going to decrease, right? In the 50s, it took us 5 to 20 years to go to a next trend and stuff like that, right? Now it's a matter of 1 or 2 years. So that means that as a business company, right, you need to make sure that you're able to adapt, right? You need to adapt or the company will die. And for adaptation, you need innovation, because otherwise you're too rigid and you're stuck in the place where you already are. So empowering the business, going back, is really important, because the business is really encountering problems, right? It's not the IT department that has problems. They have problems of their own, right? Been in IT as well, so I know how it works. And those are also important topics, but at the end, IT is not making money for you. That's the business. So if the business can innovate faster, the company can be more successful. And that's why this vibe coding is really interesting and really important as well, right? This is not a matter of that making apps is fun. No, it's a strategic capability of a good functioning organization. So let's compare. We have had traditional development for a longer period, and that, of course, is also progressing. There are a lot of things going on. There's also vibe coding within that part, right? The high coding, vibe coding, as we mentioned before. So the middle part is low no code, right? And we approach it now a little bit more as low/no code before AI, and we have vibe coding here. So let's first look at what we have here. We have speed to market, the skills, the cost, success rate, flexibility, and maintenance. If you look at traditional development, it still is most of the time months of development. Nothing wrong with that, because vibe coding is not for every software product, right? It's not for every problem that needs software. Vibe coding is the answer, or low or no code is the answer. So traditional development, high coding is really an important part of the IT landscape, and that will be there for a long period. The only downside with that, of course, you need expert developers, and we don't have enough developers to go around in this world at the moment. And because it takes months, it has a significant investment up front. The success rate of IT projects is still really poor. It doesn't change that much. So it's right, it's 39%. That is a number that most people know. Of course, it's really flexible, because you can customize everything that you like. And right, if you need complex things, it's awesome. But again, you need specialized developer knowledge. Low code a year ago, right? It takes time to learn a platform, right? You need to have some technical capability or ability still. Although, right, it is a no-code platform, right? You still need to understand, right? How do I make up a page? How do I create a workflow, right? So there was always some work to it. The success rate is 58%, and that is when business users are involved. There's still the traditional gap between business and IT. If you ask a developer to build something with minimal information, I have 24 years of experience. For some reason, you don't end up with what you want. And the other side of the hole over here, we have developers. And I experienced the same thing, but they experience the same thing the other way around as well, right? So that's a natural thing. But if you involve the business users, you get a fair percentage of success. You still are constrained by the boundaries that the platform offers. That doesn't necessarily need to be a negative thing, right? Sometimes innovation speeds up if you corner it into to specific boundaries. So most of the applications that businesses need can be developed by low or no code, but there is a boundary. The maintenance thing is better than with traditional development, although a high coder might disagree. But the transferability of a 𝗵𝘃𝗶𝗶 application written or developed a year ago is better than code. And it's probably same with other platforms as well, because it has a visual representation of the application in the development state. Of course, going to the more important part, the vibe coding bit, right? We didn't put sparkles behind vibe coding for nothing, of course. The speed has really increased, right? I always explain that this is rocket fuel. There's so much manual things that are now being executed by an AI model somewhere, where you can really go into minutes or days or hours, right? So of course it depends on how you measure, but you will see later on that in a matter of minutes you have your first version, and that is just rocket fuel to innovation. You can really rely on your own business expertise only, because AI will do the thinking for you from the technical part, right? AI is not here either in the high coding vibe code space or in the low code vibe code, do everything for you. It can't mind read, right? So the human is still the most important part of this puzzle. But you have this very smart assistant next to you who does the heavy lifting. So that's cool. Core structure, of course, there's a license component in any vibe code tool and with 𝗵𝘃𝗶𝗃s as well. We think low code is changing very rapidly. So we have also adopted our price model to that. We have introduced different characteristics to it. So if you'd like to learn more about it, just drop us a message, because we would like to discuss that with you. The success rate is really high, especially when you're doing prototyping, because you can do prototyping so fast. It helps. If you look at the AI capabilities, the flexibility that it brings, it depends a little bit on the AI model that you use, although most AI models are kind of behaving in the same way in the last couple of months. Maintenance is lower, right? But due to the other setup, there are some challenges at the end, right? And at the end, it is never about the initial building part of an application. It's not about the first 30, 40%. It's about the mid part of building an app and maintaining an app, right? You need to make sure that you actually finish it, you bring the value to your user. And that is where a lot of people get stuck at this moment. So let's do a reality check, right? So you have this first demo. We're going to do that as well. You have it in a couple of minutes. Then what? Then you have IT asking questions, right? So what happens if you add more complex logic, right? Hey, vibe code dude, can you fix that for me? And if you're in a high coding vibe code experience, then right, so you have all of this code generated for you, like pages and pages. How do you fix bugs in code that you haven't built yourself? Everybody who have written like 1 or 2 lines even know that if you are reading lines and they're not yours, it's really hard, right? You don't understand the context of it. So that is a big problem to tackle for the high coding vibe coding products. And if you have so many applications, because it's so easy to build them, right? Who maintains that, right? And how do you do that if you have multiple people working in one application? And at the end, right? So how do you know that that application is secure, right? If it's just code being generated somewhere and you put it online somewhere, how do you know the AI didn't put strange things in it, right? That can be quite scary, right? We already have AI prompt injection. So that means that people ask specific tools, ask specific questions to an AI prompt somewhere, and that leaks sensitive company data. And at the end, it is all about ownership, right? Who owns that technical depth? Who is maintaining that application? On top of that, there's the hidden cost of speed-only vibe coding, right? So speed-only vibe coding is when you're only generating code, right? When the focus is that code is being generated either in the background directly, but at the end, it's yours to maintain and to bring live. The hidden costs, if you look at the left top one, right? So you're creating a lot of code, and if you are generating on top of a prompt, you're doing that a couple of times, right? You do that for half a day or whatever. The amount of regeneration of that code is quite heavy. So that means that you have not only AI generated code, but also refactored code. And after a day or so, the refactor time takes a lot of time, right? So it's quite lengthy. Um, and it gets stuck in a way, right? Because maintaining code is really hard, even if you're really smart AI, right? So there are better ways to solve that. Of course, there's the shadow IT risk as well. If a lot of business people are building apps, that means that all of those apps need to be maintained, and you need to know if they are there, right? It is called shadow IT because a lot of applications built by business users, they live in the shadows of the company. And you would think, hey, that's for big corporates who have multi-country locations and everything like that. But even right at 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗧 scale, we're not a multinational. We have applications who have been introduced by my colleagues, and we didn't know about that, right? And there's a risk in it because there's a maintenance risk that app is there, but the person who introduced it leaves the company. So nobody knows it's there. So there's cost going on, there's a subscription going on, and nobody knows how to fix it as well. And there's, of course, the security risk, right? So we see that in the left corner as well. That if you have application being generated and it's code-based, that means that there's a security risk in it. And if people leave, right, the combination of shadow IT and the security bit is really scary because it might be that something is still there and somebody hacked it. And nobody knows it's there. So you have a hacked application. So somebody has continuous access to your organization. That's quite scary. Talking about scary, maybe the integration nightmare. You need to make sure that there's no application that stands on its own. Every application in an enterprise organization either connects to the ERP system, an HR tech system, everything like that. So that means that you need to have that in place. But if that is all based on generated code by AI, right, how do you maintain that? How do you make sure that it either works on in the first hand and that you maintain that as well? So that can be quite a nightmare. Of course, there's the compliance bit as well, because right, if you generate code in a speed-only vibe coding tool, most of the time there's no audit trail, there's no documentation, right? How do you make sure that your legal counsel is also happy with the application that is being generated? Right, and at the end, the technical part all boils down to that you are creating technical debt right, the first moment you enter that prompt. If you're just prototyping, right, and you're on your own, you're an individual, not in a business concept, it's really cool, right? Or you're this startup and you're creating a new product, it is really cool. And a lot of cool stuff have been emerging, right? And I'm not here to tell you that it's not cool and it's not interesting. No, I'm only to tell you the nuanced story of how you should approach it as an enterprise in a business concept. So what is the right way forward? So there are two. There's the 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗧𝗏 way forward, and there's the ungoverned chaos. So if you look at the two big differences, right? So if you look at the metadata bit, right, the second line, what we do at 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗧𝗏 is we don't directly generate code with AI. What we do, we already have a battle-tested, enterprise-ready, meta-driven system. So that means that the application, we have a configuration of your application, and that configuration gets converted into code. That code is for you always accessible. So that means that if you're a high coder, you want to see, hey, 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗧𝗏, how do you do that, right? What if I want to go away? What if I want to leave your 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗧𝗏 environment? You can always just pick it up, leave, continue to develop your app somewhere else. But when you are in that low-code vibe coding experience, you don't need to see that code because the app is the goal. The solving of the problem is the goal. And the code is there for you to maybe do some complex stuff or move it somewhere else, which is fine. So that is important, right? So what we do is we generate metadata. Metadata is being transformed into code, while all the other platforms are generating code first and are refactoring code. And it seems to us that that model is broken. And that model is already encountering serious problems. So the other part of it is the governance bit. If you're introducing this as a company or you want to introduce this somewhere, right, you need to make sure that if somebody's building an app, that it's secure, right? You want to know who's building what, why, and where, and who's responsible for it. And is it secure, right? And that's what we're here for, right? It's about guardrails and having the right processes in terms of implementations. So with 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗧, right, what we are about, we still offer the same speed, might even be faster at moments, especially generation bit, but there's no compromise, right? It's all about governance first, right? So IT is safe and is at ease because the applications that are being generated are under control, right? With 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗧, you can't push an application to live without the checks of a administrator. You can't send it to a friend without permission, right? So that means that you have control over it. And it sounds a little bit restrictive, but you're in a business context, so we need guardrails like that. The meta-driven architecture is important to keep your application maintained. We have years of experience of building applications on our platform, right? So we know how applications should look like, how they can have a great UI, great branding, but you want to make sure that it's maintainable as well. So for that, we need that meta-driven setup. And it's not a trade-off anywhere, right? Where you're like, hey, but I want code and please generate code. No, that code is always there. When talking about brands and look and feel, being consistent is important, right? If somebody would generate an application here and it would not have the 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗧 branding to it, I would be a little bit annoyed, right? My marketing colleagues will be even more annoyed. So what we have built in is that if you build apps within your organization's environment, right, it will always be on brand, right? You implement your brand, you implement your component libraries, and we will use them to generate your app based on AI. That will also adhere to the compliancy that you have. We have built-in permission frameworks, role-based access, audit trails, so you can see who changed what in an application, but also who provided with which access and which role has access to whatever feature. And that can be at the development level or in the application that you develop yourself. And that is not a minor thing, right? There is no simple app in a business context. People start with Excel sheets, and before they know, it is not an Excel sheet anymore, but it's a miniature app. And that is cool, but you don't have all that built-in compliance as we have. And because we are an open platform and based on open standards as well, we have a real scalable platform, right? We rely on WebAssembly in the backend, which runs on Kubernetes on every environment that you like. And that means that it's really fast. Right, we can adopt to any language that WebAssembly offers. So that is .NET, that is C#, Java, TypeScript, and everything else, Python. But the more important part, the business aspect of that, is that it's really fast. And that helps because if you're building something and you don't have control over it, like with a for-speed vibe coding thing, speed-only vibe coding, that means that you might end up with an application that performs really poor, and you don't know how to fix that. So that means that you're stuck. So all of that leads to the product which we call 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗧 Genius, right? It's AI app development that meets enterprise control. And you see it over here in this quick animation. It's just a matter of just clicking or typing a prompt and then clicking generate. Again, if you want to try it out, go to our website now, 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗧𝗏.com. On the front page, you can directly go there. And that trial is 100% for free, and you can use it as long as you like. So what is the best AI workflow? That is what we, of course, call the 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗧𝗏 way. It's not only about generating an app, but generating the right app right. So that means that you, again, start with an AI prompt. You just type in a prompt, what you need. We're going to do that in a second. Let me see what the prompt is that we're going to use. Prompts. We're going to build a supplier portal where suppliers can log in and view their orders and invoices, right? So that's the prompt. That means that if we type that, the first thing we want to find out is, okay, what are the requirements for that, right? So AI help me visualize in a requirements way what an application that needs to be a supplier portal, what that should look like, right? What are the requirements that I need to add to an application like that? We'll see that in a minute. Third step is that we generate the full application. We generate the front end, we generate your data models, right? And we can also generate your integrations, but that's for later. And after that, that is only the beginning, right? So if you can speed up that first part, which you would normally take 2 days, and you do that in a couple of minutes, that's a real boost, but it brings you to the problem, right, that you would normally have after 2 days. It brings you there in a couple of minutes. Because at the end, it's about the iteration bit, right? How easy is it to iterate to the application that you need? Because when you start developing an application, you think that you know what you need, but you actually don't, right? Because you only find it out by prototyping, by building it, by testing it with your customers, by testing it with your users, or just testing it yourself. So that iteration process is at the end the most important part of what a vibe coding platform should do. And the last part is that you should be able to deploy it anywhere, right? By default, you just deploy it on a 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗲 cloud, which runs on Kubernetes, but if you want it anywhere else, that is also possible because we are open standards based. So one of the more important things we have discussed today is our meta-driven generation, right? So we think that with, let's say, the 4-speed vibe coding tools, right, that are right available everywhere, that generation paradigm that is wrong. You don't want to get stuck with this spaghetti code later on, right? You want to make sure that you can continue to develop. And we think that for that, you need to have a meta-driven generation model. So you can just, on a more solid way, develop the application that you need. So if you compare that, right, so most vibe coding tools, they generate raw code, right? While our platform with vibe coding, we capture the intent of what you need as a structured metadata, right? So every prompt, on the other hand, needs to create code again from scratch. But in 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗲𝗲, the metadata model, right, it's a living model, right? So it's easy to adapt, and you can always see what has been changed as well, right? Because it's also visualized to you as well, visualized in a data model, visualized in a UI, but also in a workflow, right? The steps that you need to execute a certain action, right? And code is really hard to read. That's the problem, right? And with most vibe coding tools, you don't have a persistent blueprint as we have. But in our platform, we still are generating code in the background and in a language to your choosing, if you want that. But it's being generated in the background. So you don't need to look at it and you don't see it generated and being optimized and everything like that. Because, right, why would you, if you drive a car, why would you have a transparent, okay, some people would like to have that, but why would you have a transparent front of the car so you can see the car running, right? So you just know it works. And with most vibe coding tools, there's a lot of risk of overwriting what you have changed, because if you refactor things, right, the AI might drop something that you just changed, right? You first write, hey, you change this text to A, and then you change something to B, and then the other thing is going to be rewritten. And that's because our meta model, right, we already have those guardrails built in, right? We have years of experience building applications, right? And all that smart stuff is already under the hood. So it's the difference between building on quicksand or building on a solid foundation. And with 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗲𝗲, you're building on a solid foundation. So what are the 3 pillars of vibe coding with 𝗵𝘃Genius, with 𝗵𝘃blocks? The first, right, the most eye-candy thing, of course, is UI generation, right? So I still remember the first times when I generated or when I created the first page, right? It's as we mentioned, it's somewhat magical even. So that's the first pillar, right? You write a prompt and a UI is being generated, but not only the generation of the UI, but can also iterate without losing your changes that you have made before and keep up the pace. Another part is BPM. If you're interested in this, just let us know. We are working on this as well. And this is part of a blueprint as well. There's the UI, which is visual. There's a data model. There are actions, right? So if you click on a button, something happens. But you also want to see something overarching of an application to understand what it really does as a business user. And that removes the need to look at code anyway, because we can also generate a workflow. So again, if you're interested in this, just let us know. Drop us a comment. That means that via a prompt, you generate a BPM flow based on a standard, again, BPMN 2.0. And we generate pages based on the steps in your workflow. And we also generate the background actions in there as well. It's pretty cool. So let us know if you'd like to check it out. The third part is our open system. So both our front end and our back end are open based. So our front end is based on React. React is an open source project that most of you probably know, and we generate the code. But what we do is we do it in an open way, so you're not depending on a specific framework somewhere or on specific technology. What we generate is really open and is, again, standards based. It's based on React and React components. And that is a really important part of what we do nowadays. We don't believe in vendor lock-in, especially not in low code. With the emergence of AI, it's about the development part of the application, right? So you develop an application and that application should be yours and you should be able to take it anywhere you like. So why are we different? Right? So with us, it is not about code, right? You want to solve your business problem, right? You want to generate an app because you have encountered a problem and you're like, hey, man, it would be really interesting and really handy if I could just have an app for that. It would really speed up my life and make my work more efficient. So you need to focus on the problem and the solution and not the technology underneath. Again, as mentioned, we are meta-driven, right? So that makes sure that we don't override changes. The generation is fast, right? We have built-in guardrails. So I think that's a better model. The technology enables us to, right, to scale faster, to get to production faster, because you're working on this solid foundation of battle-tested low-code products underneath the AI vibe coding bit. We have governance by design, so that means that you don't need to bother about it. You can really and easily bring this product to your colleagues, to your employees, to make sure that they innovate and help the company solve business problems without creating security risks and other shadow IT things. Design consistency is important, right? Who likes to use a piece of software which is ugly maybe first and not user-friendly, right? So it is 2025. There is already way too much ugly software out there. Let's not produce more. So let's make sure we are consistent in terms of design. And build the right app right. Make sure that before you build, right, you can do requirements engineering, and AI can help you with that, and the 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗧 platform will help you with that. That means that you first generate requirements, you can change that, and that will also speed up the development cycle later on as well, because you can also groom your requirements and keep it small, only build an MVP, and go from there. This is an interesting topic for me personally, because we have been banging the drum around citizen development for a long period, and successfully as well. We have been named a leader in the citizen development wave before, so right. So we know what this is, and that's what's interesting nowadays is that the challenge that we had is that citizen development was kind of stuck because at the end software development was just hard, and that was not a technology point of view. It was maybe a creativity problem where people couldn't bridge the gap between the problem that they had and knew where to start. And that is where AI is a game changer. That rocket fuel that is AI, if you put that into citizen development, it is really taking off. So that's what you see now, but it comes with a risk as well, right? So we're assuming that everyone can build an app making use of AI. That means that everybody is creating apps in a matter of minutes. But then you have that shadow IT problem. Somebody is creating an app in that corner of the company and in that corner of the company. So you get ungoverned and uncontrolled proliferation. And at the end, you have that speed of creating apps everywhere, but you're still in trouble because it is not safe and secure. So the solution to that is what we call vibe coding for enterprises, right? Governed vibe coding. And with that, you can go to citizen development at scale, right? You have the advantages of that speed of vibe coding that you already have learned to love probably, but you have those guardrails, so you know you can build something which is safe and secure. Okay, now the hard part, I'm going to demo. Let me first check if there are already some questions here. Don't think like it, or is that here? Let me do a quick check. Q&A, there's one here. 𝗪𝗶𝗯𝗲, if I got that right. We experiment with 𝗵𝘃𝗶𝗶 Genius manual app development from scratch. From the development cycle, is it feasible to generate an initial application using 𝗵𝘃 AI and subsequently extend or modify its architecture, for instance, by adding or replacing components to align with custom requirements identified during manual development? So let me see if I get your question right. So I think you want to combine manual work with AI work. If I get that right, so I'm gonna demo that in a second, how you modify something, but you can combine it, right? So let me open up the development environment. Let me see if this is the right one. I think so. Hopefully you guys still looking at the right screen. So this is an empty application, right? So there's only just some placeholder stuff in here. And some basic data models. So let me first start generating something, and I'm going to use the prompt that I mentioned before. So it's about building a supplier portal. And here we go. So where we now are, we are now in our requirements engineering part of the application. So what it now does, it first fetches all of the information from an application, because you can do this multiple times, but I will show that later on as well. And it starts generating different pages that it thinks it needs for your supplier portal. So a simple login page, you already see a dashboard, maybe some orders, and you can also click on them, and then the scoping happens to the right as well. Right, some orders, and you can click on all pages. So we expect 5 pages. The last one is being generated as of now, right? So that is the profile page. What you also can do is you go to the dashboard part, recent activity feed. You can also just change something. So let's see what this is. And then only show 5 recent. So you can just change the requirement of that. And you can also delete stuff, right? You just click on delete, but let me not do that now. What's also interesting is if you go to a order page here, you can click on plus, and the AI will try to generate even more requirements, right? Maybe you think it has missed something, right? You can add it here if you want to, or just click here and you can add it manually, right? So you can just craft your whole requirements model and then submit it to our application. Also the layouts here, so it means that, right, this is the visual layout. You have a public layout, as you can see, and there's the supplier part of it. Now we will show that in a second. And over here, we have the data models that we think we need in here as well. So, right, an order, which makes sense because we need to show that, an order item and an invoice item, right? Okay, now let's see where this takes us. And we click on generate. To the left bottom over here, you see the pages that we just, right, were suggested. Those are being generated as we speak. And per page, we are now at the login page, as you can see. You see the requirements that were just there. You can move from one to another, right? And you'll see at the moment it is generating the layout itself. It's now generating the supplier portal layout, I assume, and you can just go from one to the other, right, while it's generating. So you can see what's happening and what's going on. And you can already see if this is something that you like. So let me see how this is progressing. There's, of course, that's the fun part of AI generating things. It also generates the right, let's say, sample data to it as well, right? So I didn't provide any company name. So of course it uses the 𝗵𝘃𝗶𝗴 as it normally does. It already populates some placeholder data in the recent activity as well, as you can see in here, and it generates the right quick actions, right? So and what you see in here, right? These numbers are now in this preview because we're looking at a preview. Is just sample data. We can already go to this specific page in here, right? So this is a supplier profile, right? So this is when you click here. While this is generating, you can already open this in a new tab. And I think this is working. Nobody is saying it's not, so let me do a quick check. So that means that I'm right. So we can see in here while the other pages still generate, right? So one is still busy. You can already start changing this, right? This is kind of cool. So let me see what this has in it. So you can just click on this one. And what you see, it automatically logically combines and groups parts of your page, right? So you don't need to look at all the specific details. So you just have the supplier code over here, right? Company information there, right? So let me just not change this. You just notice this changing, right? So this also makes it really easy for a business user to change as well, because you're not being bothered by all kinds of different small components where you have no clue what it does. So let me go back. So now the entire app is being generated. So let me go to the page builder here, right? So this is this part. And you can see over here the different pages that have been generated here, right? So this is kind of cool. And what you see in here is that it has also already generated your data model for you as well, right? So we have a user model, right? And it has added all kinds of different properties to it. We have this order overview, and that associates with this order thing. So we have an invoice model in here, and you can see that this table is already being connected to that specific variable, as we call it, right? To that model in your database. And you see it over here. If you click on it, this is already automatically being populated. So this is one of the advantages of working with a meta-driven platform, right? You're not seeing any code, but you still get the application, right? And the code is still there. So it means that you just focus on a visual way of building where you don't need to click on the visual stuff anymore, right? It was already quite easy to build an application by dragging and dropping components on a canvas, but you don't need to do that anymore because it's already done. And of course you can run this as well. Always exciting to see if it actually works. So I hope it does. So this is interesting to show as well. So hey, this pop-up appears, right? This login, 𝗵𝘃𝗶𝗃 login. Why is it here? So why is this important? Because there is already data in here, right? So you'll see that in a second. So that data is in there. And that might be sensitive data because you might have changed it. So this application is not accessible to the public because it might be that you have used specific prompting where there's sensitive data in it. So it means that everything is controlled in here. So it doesn't do authentication. I need to log in again. That's correct. So here we are, right? So you see at the application in here. And let's see what we have more. Other pages like the order one, right? So you have all kinds of cool stuff that you can directly test in your browser, right? So that you don't need to run anything, you don't need to deploy anything, you just click on play and then it's there. Only need to log in, by the way. It's also really cool. You have this layout being generated. It was already announced on the requirements page. And if you go there, right, so as you see, AI is never 100% perfect, which is not really a bad thing because you don't need to go to code. You just go to this icon bit here. And this is invoices suitcase. I'll just find one here. I'll just use this one, right? And I can go back to this page and you see everything that is relying on this part. That's also invoices, I assume. There we are, right? So you see it over here as well. Right, it struggles a little bit because my screen is not big enough, but you get the gist of it. So how do you change anything like this? Let me show you that as well. Here we are. See if I can directly pull this up. Let me do a quick check. Yeah, let me just go to the video for sake of success reasons. So how do you change things? Let me share the video screen. See if I can find it. Not yet, not yet. Oh, here it is. Okay, here we are. It doesn't have a, I assume this works, but let me know, colleagues, if you don't see the screen. But so here we are. This is a different application. So this is already pre-populated, so I can show it more easily. So we have this application here, and you click on a group of components. So these are the quick actions, right? You saw that in the application that I just generated as well. And now I want to change anything, change something in the setup. So you see this this prompt, which is right underneath of the component. And we're trying to rename conflicts and add an export button. And so what happened? It jumps to the left, right, to the genius bit of an application. And what we can do is you can directly, it will, right, start to process this change. So first it does some thinking, right? It also shows the reasoning, as you can see in here. And it went pretty quick. So it's already generating, as you can see in here, right? So it's generating the export data button. And there you have it. And what's interesting is that you can, right, choose to accept that change or to ignore it, or to see what the previous setup looked like as well. So first I'm gonna discard this because I'm gonna try another change in here. So I want to wrap it in a tile, right, to make the visual representation a bit more attractive. So what we're doing here is it goes thinking again, and then it starts generating it, and you can see it happening while it's generating. It might jump up and down a little bit, but just consider that as entertainment. And you see how these different tiles look like, right? And if you think this looks better, you can just accept the change there, right? You also see this refresh or this revert button, and if you click on that, you will go back to your previous state, right? You can see how it showed. But yeah, let me go back to that for a moment. Okay, let me do a quick check because we're running a little bit late here. We have some questions. So the first question is from Leonard. Is it possible to try the 𝗵𝘃𝗀 stack with 𝗵𝘃 Genius free to make a POC? I think your question is maybe for free. Yes, you can. You can use 𝗵𝘃 if you just sign up online and you can make your POC. And let us know how it goes. If you need some help, there's I unshare the screen, but there's always a chat balloon in the right corner, and you can directly chat with my support colleagues who are one floor down over here. If you want to know how they look like, just check my LinkedIn, because I made an office tour video yesterday, and you can see Sven, and Sven might answer your question there. But yes, you can, Leonard. So if we can help, just let us know. There is another question here from Anonymous and Anonymous Anthony. Will it be able to create pages just by supplying 𝗵𝘃 Genius with Figma screens? Yes, you can. If you upload a screenshot of a page, our AI will try to, not per pixel perfect, but pretty close, try to recreate that page. And you can do that with Figma screens or any screenshot that you like. There was a question there, but it disappeared. Do I have it back again? Here it is. Does 𝗵𝘃 Genius also extend the data model with relationships and actions? The actions bit is what we are working on at this moment. So if you sign up today, it does all the data model and a working application. But the actions bit is a work in progress, but we'll get to that hopefully anytime soon. We are working on that, so it won't take that much longer. But yeah, let us know what you need, and we can definitely help you with that. Ari has a question. Thank you for your question, Ari. Hi, Chris. How does the pricing plan of 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗲 look like? Yeah, so we are in the process of updating our pricing. So what we are changing is to make it more attractive for smaller applications. So we're a little bit in the midst of this, but what it will end up is that, I'm not sure if you're familiar with our current pricing, but it will, the paradigm will change a little bit. So we will more charge the development phase and not the actual users of your application. That's one bit. And because we have now an open model, it also means that if you are hosting it yourself, you can move away from our platform. And that means that it's for free because you're no longer with us. Hope that answers your question. There's another question here, which is, how does 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗲𝗏's workflow make sure that the security compliance and governance stay embedded throughout the life cycle? So on one part, it is just built in. So that means that 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗏's applications which you built are just not for public. You need to explicitly do that. And to do that, you need to go through a consent cycle, right? You need to get permission to do so. Another one is that we have our sandboxing set up for that as well, which is really important. And our role-based access system is really important. So there's the fact that people use our platform means that everything is within our control. And that is just a different model than with other platforms, right? Where it is really very much single application oriented and where you don't control, let's say, the running of an application or the deployment. And that means that there's a lot of risk. So we just have to offer more control. Any advice for business users who want to adopt 𝗵𝘃_Genius but are facing pushback from their IT leadership? That is an excellent question. I think there are a couple of ways to tackle that. I think what most people do is they go rogue and they just start building and they don't tell the IT department. I would say if you do so, please use our platform because then you really have a good story when you are talking to IT. I think that is the first thing to say. What you also can do if you have pushback, we can help you with that. We have materials for you, so you can reach out to us, and that's the easiest way. We can send you materials which you can send to your IT people to explain how governance works and stuff like that. So I think that is the best way. So I'm not here to tell you go rogue because I'm not at liberty maybe to do so in your situation. And there's another question here. Are there any plans to utilize AI to create documentation on how the app is structured, set up like a development application? That is a really cool question and an interesting question. At the moment, right, so the most important part of documenting is make sure that the application is visualized and visual enough. So with BPM, with data models and all that other stuff, right? There's less need for documentation. There are means to document your application. There's no AI for us in that yet. But if you have any thoughts on that, just let us know, because I think we need to come up with a new setup for that as well, right? Because with code, there's lengthy documentation, which nobody reads. So I think we really need to zoom in on the actual problem, which need to be documented. So hope that answers the question. There is a question here. Will it only use standard components while creating pages, or will it create custom ones in order to make it work when the requirements are given? Yeah, so at the end, it's more or less the latter. Our AI model can generate based on let's say basic normal HTML or React components, can build almost any component that is needed. So it will be let's say a custom component for your specific application, but built on a standard component. So that is more or less how it works. And that is also the best maintainable way as well, because you don't have any external dependencies. Leonard has an additional question. How does 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗏 support REST API calls to another ERP system? For example, we have an app to manage product prices. When you make a bulk edit for a lot of records, 10,000 plus, can the workflow integration handle this one for one to another API endpoint? Yeah, so the first topic that I would touch there, Leonard, is right. You should always keep your data where it closest where it's generated and where it is. So right, you don't want to sync things or import it. Also not in a 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗧 application. So we have standard connectors, and we have a model which we call remote model. So that means that you create a model in your data model in 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗧, but it represents an entity which is actually in a different system, and that can be based on a REST application for sure, right? I think almost every application has that, and we're working on AI stuff as well to make that even easier. But if you have an OpenAI or a Swagger setup right now, it's a matter of a minute to get it up and running. So maybe the second part of your question could be around performance, right? So how do you make a bulk edit for a lot of records? There are different means. So the first part is does the API does it allow to do bulk updating? If it does, right, that would be the best way forward. If it does not, right, it's probably not our platform which will have a performance issue. We just need to bluntly say loop through 10,000 records, and our platform doesn't really bother about that. We're quite fast. The only thing is that it might hurt your API. That would be more of my guess first. But interesting question, Leonard. So yeah, if please tell us more, but because then we can see how we can help you. Siddhant, after building an application manually in 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗧, can we integrate the 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗧 in between it? It might be that your question is around integrating AI in the application that you have built yourself, which is definitely possible. We have pre-built components and connectors for that. We also have example applications, and we're also working on a way where also that part will be automatically generated for you by AI as well. So that means that you have this supplier application, which I just created, but then you want to add a chat prompt where people can use AI to query those invoices and ask, hey, what is my show me my unpaid invoices and stuff like that. But that is possible, and we're working on ways to do that more AI oriented. When the widgets identified and built from scratch differ from those automatically generated by 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗧 during project generation, project creation, can we get both on the same page? I don't know which is one or the other. I think, yeah, so if you start within the AI generation bit and you add manual stuff, right, you stay in the same setup, so you can use the different components. It might be that this anonymous user is already a 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗧 user, and it's an application that might be a little bit older. So we need to check if the application that you have is compatible, and otherwise we can help you to upgrade it. But normally you should. How can we access that custom component code that was created for developers to access and extend it or fix it accordingly? So there's a download button in our platform, which I can show you maybe in a different moment, where you can just download the app and you get the React app and you get the back-end app, and then you can run it locally. There's no, if you download the entire app, you can't upload the entire app again. But if you want to change one specific component, which I think you are referring to, then you can do it, but you only download that specific component. You first need to upload it, then use it, and then change it again. Right? That is what the flow is. Is it possible to edit 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗧 design directly instead of giving prompts? Yes, you're right, I didn't demo that. But normally you just click on a component, and to the left part, you can just change that component just by adding styling, changing the text, or connecting to a data model somewhere. Right? So that's definitely possible. My apologies, I should have demoed that in a better way. Aside from generating pages, can we also generate data models, actions, or parts of those with Genius outside of pages? So the data model, right? So the data model part, it already generates it, but maybe, yeah. So, but you can't do that yet outside of of the environment I just shown. I think what you're referring to is that you want to have the same feature in the data model section, which is work in progress. So we are getting there, right? So we're working at a really fast pace at the moment, where I'm very pleased with. So props up to everybody hopefully watching this and building this at the same time. But that needs a little bit more work. Oh, so many questions. I should check if I don't miss any. As this is the one that I already answered. Yeah. So Leonard says, thank you. Thank you as well, Leonard. Anonymous attendee, can we add a custom code-based component on React added in a Betty Genius project later? Yes, definitely. Yeah, we have, there are videos for this as well online. You can simply just check it out. Right, so manual or AI, that shouldn't matter. And you can always add custom stuff, custom code yourself in either the back end or the front end. That is how it works. This might be the last question, because we're also running a little bit over as well. Will Betty Genius only work on new applications, or will it be available in existing applications? In existing applications, you can use it. There are some small disclaimers, but not on an existing page. I think that is maybe in short the answer. So you need to create a new page. How can I generate an app on 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗲.com if I already have a login? That is an excellent question. You need to create a new app and then go to the icon that I just showed in the left menu bar, right? So in an existing app, you can also do it, or create a new app yourself. But Wanda, it seems like you already have an account, so just ask our support department in the chat, and they are more than willing to help you. But yes, you can. This is really neat, nice work. I can't wait to generate a big form by providing a list of questions and then refine it with my low code. I understand that. No. So be sure to check it out. So thank you for all your questions, and everybody attending as well. I'm very pleased with all of you showing up. So make sure to check it out on the website. If you like to have more, right? If you want to talk to a human, don't be shy. Just reach out as well. We have tons of people who are dying to discuss this with you, because we're very proud of what we built. We think it's really different as well than other platforms. So we hope you like it. Thank you as well, Wanda. So I think this is it for me now. Thank you for all your questions and watching, and we'll see you in another webinar anytime soon. Thank you.